the people who didn't get the grant would still be better off because they had gotten an opportunity to learn the basics, ask some questions, and those kinds of things.
To be welcomed is to be seen, right?
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Anna Clements, and this is Audiobooks with Anna, where we explore the fascinating world of audiobooks with industry experts. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us so far. Today we're speaking about audio in colour. I am thrilled that Nana Malone and Andi Arndt are here to speak with us. Andi, I know I've asked you several times to come along and chat with us, but today we found a worthy cause, and thank you so much for taking the time. And Nana, I know that you've just come back from a conference and are super busy too, so hugely grateful to you both. Perhaps we can start with Andi. Can you just give us, each of you, a background to yourselves, and then we'll move into the conversation we're really here to talk about today, about how you've made audio in colour work and how fantastic it is.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Andi Arndt, and I have narrated somewhere in the 700s of audiobooks at this point. I've been doing this work for about 15 years, and I met Nana in Las Vegas back when RT was still a thing.
Oh, what's RT?
Romantic Times.
Oh,
Yeah, it was a romance signing. It was a really cool hybrid event where during the week authors would have craft industry, workshops, and so they were learning more about, the business of writing romance, and then the weekend became a signing. So it was this really cool mixed event.
there are so many great things going on. And just I'm blown away and super excited to talk to you all about, or you both, I should say, about all the things that do go on within the romance world, as well as your great initiative. Nana, would you mind giving us an overview of you and how you got here, so to speak?
For anyone listening, I'm Nana Malone. I am the author of Sexy Feel Good Romance, primarily featuring women of color as my heroines. And I have, oh God, Andi, I'm about to embarrass myself and not know the number, but I think it's 144 is current count of books. And I'm what you call a hybrid author. So I am published traditionally and independently, most of my titles being independent. And yeah, Andi and I did meet a long, long time ago at Romantic Times, which and I remember I was doing an audiobook panel, and this is how Andi knew that she wanted to be my friend. I think I put a 20 on the table, and I was like, "You're leaving money on the table." And I did my parents are from Ghana, so I did my mom's accent. I was like, "You don't like money." And Andi came out to me afterwards, and she was like, "I think I love you." Um, and we've been friends ever since. And I also have been around for, yeah, Andi, I think we've been kicking around the same amount of time, 15 years, 14. Yeah, 15. I've been published 14, but 15 trying to get published, definitely.
I'd love to, I don't know if to just invite you both to open your mics up and that just let us in on a conversation about how we often, as narrators, create wonderful relationships with the authors we work with. But I'm fascinated to know how all of this came about, because what you've created, and I'm excited to tell everybody about it, is quite incredible. But I'm fascinated about those early days of kind of how this idea even came to be.
Um, Andi and I have given many, many a times. Andi will just tag team like usual, I guess. So this initiative started way back in 2020. Obviously, the world was on fire, and I, as an author, I wanted to do something sustainable because obviously, everyone was doing protests and things like that. And yes, I could have done that, but that wasn't sustainable for me, and it was very emotionally taxing. And I thought about what I could do in my small corner of the universe, which is the romance world. And people were like I want to read more diversely. And then the standard kind of conversation after people say that is like, but I don't know where on earth to find such books because Google apparently does not work for everyone. And so I came up with an initiative called the Brown Nipple Challenge, where I cultivated a list of books that were similar to mine, and said to my audience, I was like, well, hey, if you love my books, you will also love these. And how it was different than just simple book recommendations was, instead of just being like, oh, go read this, where people would put on their Goodreads shelf and just be like, look at all the diverse authors I would read one day. I would call the author and have them on my IG live, and we would talk about the book and why I loved it. And it became more than a just go read this thing, but more like a conversation, and pulling the readers into the conversation, so readers would go, oh, I know this person. And once reader feels like they know you, they're more likely to make a buying decision. And Andy and Lyric were very, very supportive of the initiative, and they kept asking me like, "How do I help?" And of course, I had no idea because I was just I was like, "I'm doing a book club. I don't know." And Andy noticed that the first couple of books didn't have audiobooks attached to it, and we had a conversation, and I was like, you know how expensive it is to do audio, and then we started talking about it and ways to like really support those authors to potentially get audiobooks. And then I will hand off to Andy at this point.
Yeah, so my memory is that I was tuned in to a Brown Nipple Challenge discussion. Nana's Instagram personality and like her camera readiness, like she's a force. And so whenever I saw on Instagram that she was live, I would always say, "Oh, I want to tune in for that." I was in the laundry room folding laundry, and she was, there interviewing this author. And I was like, why is there no audio? Why is there no audio? And like she said, she was like, how expensive that is. And Lyric Audiobooks had been at that point producing for Nana. And I've gotten to narrate a couple of books for Nana, which is wonderful. They're super fun and you should go check them out. But we started to think, well, what about reducing the barrier to entry by finding a way to offset the cost for that first audiobook in an author's portfolio so that they could then use the proceeds from that audiobook to fund further productions or to frankly do whatever the heck they wanted in their author business, just like other authors do. And at that time, there was an entity in our business, in our industry, that had a conversation with me saying, "Hey, if you ever have any ideas about things that we could do to partner together, let us know." And I didn't really know what that would be. So it was sort of on the back burner. And I went, "Wait a second, Nana." This company wants to talk to me. And Nana was like, "Oh, I have a contact at that company." So we scheduled a meeting and we asked for $30,000, as you do. I felt like in Waiting for Guffman, where they're like, "Well, we need $100,000." But they said yes. And again, it was 2020. And so there was this, tremendous need to want to do something because we were becoming aware of the inequities, the gross inequities across many sectors of our economy and in the world. So it was almost as though, like, once Donna and I said, "Hey, we have a way for you to do this very concrete thing," it was easier to get to yes.
Yes. And then, I mean, one of the great things about this, well, Andy's ability to just ask casually for $30,000 is one of the best things, but also the romance community in and of itself, because once we announced our program, and we knew that we wanted it to go on and go as far as it possibly could, but we didn't really know where like the future would hold. And one of the best things was when we announced it. We're like, "Oh, we're doing this thing, and we're open. We're looking for judges, and we're open for submissions." The romance community responded in this incredible groundswell of support, and I mean, I will never forget Julia Kent emailing me, and she was like, "Do I mail you my card? What do you need?" And I was like, "No, no." And I literally said, "No, no, we don't need money. We have a crazy person." And I was like, "No, we have funding." She's like, I want to give you money." And so I texted Andy and I was like, "Dude, we got to get like a basket or something to catch the funds because people want to give us money." And just the support from authors, big and small. Some people gave $5, some people gave $1,000. I mean, and we just were so incredibly just really grateful. And just I was shocked and confused. I always joke that Andy dragged me to a nonprofit kicking and screaming because I'm like, "It's a book club. I don't know what I want." I mean, I'm such an author sometimes. Andy was like, "No, no, we're going to become a nonprofit. It's going to be great." And I was like, "Are we though?" And just the support from the community has been amazing. And we're currently in our third round right now, which is, I kind of pinch myself every time. And the authors that have been involved, like to watch them flourish when we give them access, because one of the difficult things for authors of color, authors in marginalized community is when you start in this business, you are alone. you don't have the easy networks, and a lot of those networks feel closed off. And it was only because of I had another narrator who kind of was like, oh, I know Andi Arndt, that I kind of was, and I to me I was like, oh my god, Andi Arndt, like to me Andi was famous. So I was like, I can't talk to her, are you joking? And then the narrator was at my panel in RT, and she's like, Andi, come with me. I think that's how it happened, I don't remember. And Andi was in the panel, and she was like, no, no. And then I was like, oh, I know a famous person. But those doors are often closed for marginalized authors, and you have to struggle and to really kind of pry them open. And we've been able to give our authors so much access so that they can meet agents, they can meet other authors, like, and get mentorship from like these big name authors, which if I'd had that, let alone the funds to do an audiobook when I started, but if I just had mentorship from some of these bigger authors, who knows where my career would have been. And I've been fortunate over the last few years, but like there are so many other authors who haven't been. And so this has been a great opportunity to be able to pay it forward a little bit.
I'm fascinated then about those first authors who actually took you up, because I can imagine Andi asking for money and people saying yes. You can be very persuasive, Andi, and thank goodness for you. But I am curious about those first authors, because so many independent authors feel, as you said, that audiobook publishing is incredibly expensive. I've had indie authors say, I don't have $15,000. And I'm like, oh, I don't know who you're paying that much money to, but it doesn't cost that much, I swear. So I'm fascinated just by those first couple of books where you started realizing this was really going to take off and happen. How did that feel?
Well, this is a grant program, and so we had an application process. And thanks to the GoFundMe that came on the heels of the announcement of the first cycle, grant cycle, we did raise another almost $12,000. And we were basically thinking $5,000 per project, and honoraria for the judges, and how many books we could produce. So we opened the program up for applications. What did we get? Like 40 the first year,
I
something
think
like that.
43.
Okay, and we had 8 grantees, 7 of which, is this right? 7 of which went to full production because there was a book that was not finished that ended up not getting finished.
Yes, 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 yes.
So we took that first cohort of what we did was we narrowed it down to, I think, 20 finalists, and we had a webinar with those finalists talking about the basics of audiobook publishing, so that even if the people who didn't get the grant would still be better off because they had gotten an opportunity to learn the basics, ask some questions, and those kinds of things. So then we had our final grantees, and we went into production with those books, and we promoted those books. We tried to find author mentors for those authors. And one of our grantees, Jen Trin's audiobook of Crushing on You, again, recommended listen, was an Audie finalist the next year. So, I mean, everything that we dreamed for these authors started to happen. And maybe, Nana, you can talk about the Book Bonanza piece too.
Yes. So, for those of you not in the know, Book Bonanza is or was a signing kind of built and run by Colleen Hoover and her amazing team. We just had the final Book Bonanza just last week that I was at, which is why my voice sounds like I'm, doing my very sexy narrator, Andy kind of version. And we kind of pitched to them, and we were, obviously we were looking for money because we were looking to do more rounds of this. And they said, yeah, you have to be 501(c) first. And at that time we weren't, but they're like, what we can do right now for you is support your authors. So, and the support looked like giving them an author ticket. So for authors at the time, you had to pay like $350 for an author table, and Book Bonanza was a hot ticket. So you had to be invited. Maybe some of you have heard, like, for the readers, it is the ticket to have. It's like someone said, as I age myself, Madonna is coming to town. And you would, Beyonce, okay, better. Beyonce is here. We've got like, 3 front row tickets, basically, and readers would go insane. And for an author to be able to be at Book Bonanza, and look, if you're kind of like, oh, what if no one comes to my table, which is, it's a real anxiety to have, but you often can go and catch like I like to pick people off of people's lines. Andy's seen me do this. I'm like, if you're the last person in someone's line, I will pick you off and be like, while you're waiting, just put your bag down, just come over here, talk to me. And you're not leaving my table without buying something. And having authors there and able to a soak up the atmosphere, but B, I think one of the most important things about a signing like Book Bonanza is the networking. Like, yes, meeting readers, of course, the readers, always the readers, but also networking with other authors, getting access to people like you would usually never have access to unless, a friend introduced you. At Book Bonanza, it's kind of a free for all because you're next to someone, you're like, hi, what do you write? And it's a great way to, just really talk to people in a more relaxed kind of setting instead of trying online to make friends with people. And then those readers that you kind of pick off become fans. That was one of the really exciting things, like just watching the authors just walk away and they're like, no, I had a really good signing. And it's not about selling out the number of books, but like it's exposure, it's actually being able to sell some books and getting used to pitching your book, which is a key thing. Andy's seen me do this. I like to say that I hand sell every book that comes off of my table. I literally hand sell it. And sometimes Andy will hand sell for me if we're next to each other. And just giving them the opportunity to do that. I think for one of them, for Kat, she'd never even done a signing last year. And just giving, and she had a great time. And it's one of the great things about Kat, like one of our authors, is she was just very introverted. Like I'd had her on for audio and color, and she's so introverted and kind of quiet, but like on screen she was fine, but like in person, and you could tell she was a little overwhelmed. And then afterwards she was like, that was so fun. And she's like, and I sold books. And of course, like every time someone came up to my table and I was like, have you been to the audio and color tables? And so just pointing them out and like directly sending people that way as a funnel. And they had so much support from Book Bonanza. I think for them that to just walk into an environment where you're kind of a little bit apprehensive and then just get supported. And then this year, an author who wanted to remain anonymous, funded our authors to go and just completely support them. So we had another few authors there this year as well. And they all had a great time, a fantastic, just a fantastic experience, sold a lot of books, got used to doing their pitches, and they feel it, to be welcomed is to be seen, right? And so I think for some of them, the first time in their careers, they really felt seen. They're like, oh, this is big leagues. I am here. As Andy said with Jen Trin, like being nominated for an Audie last year, like that's the epitome of what we were trying to do with this program. And to watch it happen, it was very emotional, I think, for all of us. Like, and then, when we called Jen to tell her, she was sweet thing. She was in tears. It was very emotional and just like very satisfying to be like, yes, this is what we were trying to do. Because had we not done this program, her book might have just languished until maybe hopefully someone on TikTok saw it and made it a thing. But like, what if they never did? So programs like Book Bonanza that are supportive of us, and we're going to be at STEAMY Lit again this year. So as more signings, want to support our program and invite the authors and give them an opportunity to shine. I mean, it's been really great for the program so far.
I'm fascinated by what ultimately is what we have here in the audiobooks community, which is community. I love what you said about to be welcomed is to be seen. And I'm curious about how much you feel that idea of mentoring, fostering, promoting, how important that has been for you and how much time you actually have to commit to that. How big is the program? How many of you are involved?
We have a board of directors now because we are a 501c3. And so there were 5 of us for the first year of the board, and we've just brought on Amy Oliveira, who is a grantee, and she's joining the board in an at-large position to speak to the author grantee experience, so we can make sure that that's always the best that it can be. And then we also brought on our first treasurer. The cool thing about Gabby, who's joining us as treasurer, is that I actually met her as a result of our Fall into Romance auction that one of our board members, Anne Rochelle, organized last year, which Nana can tell you how amazing that was. It was just like mind blowing. Anne is incredible. So it's Katie Robinson, who now owns Lyric Audiobooks, and me and Nana and Anne Rochelle and Ronyelle Baker. Is Ronyelle in here? She was going to try to pop in. who's like a super fan influencer who was like, "Yes, I will help," when we asked her. So Gabby won a gourmet basket that Sebastian York and I donated to the Fall into Romance auction. And what Sebastian and I didn't know, because we didn't bother to think about this, is that you can't ship a wine basket like yourself. It would have to ship from a wine shop, and he had sent some wine to me from a wine shop in New York to add to some other bottles and ship to whoever won this auction. And so Gabby was in Florida, and she was the winner. Then I found out that I couldn't ship it, and so I'm a person who I'll just keep going forward with something and find out what's supposed to happen. I just was like, clearly I'm supposed to go to Florida and deliver this wine basket. And so I found a ticket. I flew to Florida with this wine basket. I had to kind of take it all apart and reassemble it from my luggage when I got there. And she and I spent a wonderful afternoon in a combination wine shop bookstore there in St. Petersburg, Florida. She's absolutely wonderful. And she was just stressing out about passing her CPA exam. And then I found out she passed it. And now she just got into this amazing, like, advanced degree accounting thing in London. She's moving to London. So that was why I was supposed to go to St. Petersburg and meet her, because she had to be the treasurer for Audio and Color.
That's fantastic. Absolutely love that. The universe really does organize us all, doesn't it? Nana, tell us a moment then about the Fall into Romance auction. That sounds fascinating.
So the Fall into Romance auction, as Andy said, Anne Rochelle is a force, like just a force, but then also a force to be reckoned with, because we were in a board meeting and talking about how to raise more funds. And obviously the GoFundMe is still going, and we could have tapped the romance community yet again. And Anne said, what if we had an auction? And I was, like, as an author, I'm a little burnt out on auctions because there's so many. There's an auction for this and there's an auction for that, and people want you to write some brand new thing. And I was like, I don't know about an auction. And I feel like I don't know if the readers are still into auctions. And looked at me and just was like, no, we're doing an auction. And I think we were all a little like, how to run one of these romance auctions. And Katie was like, whatever you want to do. And Anne was like, done. And Anne organized, after signing, we collected as many book donations as we could. And then we, beautiful graphics from beautiful landing. And then we open it up for auction. And we could, Andy and I were just like, oh my God, the amount of support, the books donated, what people will pay for is, I'm always surprised. Some of the books that were donated were special edition, and people were like, I have to have it. I don't care. In the upwards of thousands. And we were, oh. And Anne just sat back and like sagely nodded her head, like, yes, I knew how this was going to go. And so, we raised so much money, and so much though that we're like, okay, we have enough for round two. We have some left over for round three, able to pay our judges honorariums. And we are a real 501(c). We're a real nonprofit. And I was like, oh, so the program lives on. And just knowing that, and like Anne was one of the, I love Andy to bits, but I was like, Anne was probably the best addition that we have made to that board, because she was not playing around and she knew exactly what to do on the marketing end. She's like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. It's going to be great. Just trust me. And we raised a lot of money. Just incredible, so that we're able to keep the program going. And this year at Book Bonanza, we got so many donations. We have boxes and boxes and boxes of books. So once again, making it possible that we're going to be able to take the program even further.
That's wonderful. Do talk to me a minute then about, you mentioned again the judges. Do you have a yearly intake where you announce that people can apply? How does the system work for anybody who might be interested in applying?
Well, Ronyelle is here, actually. Ronyelle, if you raise your hand, if you're willing to pop on up, you could explain how that works, since you're in charge of that area.
I can invite her to speak if she hopefully
There we
sees up
go.
here. Welcome,
Okay.
welcome to the sofa.
Good morning. Hi. I'm over here on the left side of the world. Um,
I was just curious about kind of the whole process. If anybody who's listening might be interested in kind of finding out more about you, we've got the website at the top of the page here. But I was just curious kind of how if you could talk us through the process.
yeah, there is a form. I'm not exactly positive that it's on the, we just started a form an application form for anybody that's interested to fill out. I believe it's on the website. It may or may not be. Don't quote me 100% on that. I'm sure it will be at some point. And we gather, judges who both eyeball read and do audio, who are avid readers and open, who read people of color, read diversely, and they read a ton. We usually give them about 10 books or so to read in a fairly short time frame. And it's super fun to watch them battle and fight for the books. I believe this year, we've got 90 or so, a little over 90, I believe, books that have to be whittled down, and the way they get passionate about which books they want to keep and which books get put, to go forward into the finalist round. It's like the best form of torture that anybody could go through.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare and not something I would want to have to do. Do they actually then sit down as a committee of sorts and kind of fight for the one that they feel really needs to be out in the public, out for public consumption? How does I'm assuming there is a system, a point system perhaps, or some kind of criteria you give them?
Yes, yes. There's a bit of a grading system, up to like 50 points, and that helps, weed down some. But then there's a big meeting. We have a initial meeting. Everybody kind of talks about what, how they're feeling, how many books they're liking, not liking, feeling passionate about already. But in the big voting session, which we always underestimate and say, oh, it's just going to be a couple of hours, ends up being all night. Um, each book gets about two judges, and then it opens up to everyone who, based off of those judges or, other people who have also read the books, and they literally just battle it out. At some point we have to be rational because every book can't be produced, so emotions run high. It really is just exquisite torture, and they spend a lot of time eyeball reading uh, the books and really just breaking it down and separating your heart from what's practical, and then you know eventually sometimes you just don't care. I don't care if the world doesn't see this book. I'm flipping all the tables over.
I love the idea that there's such strong feelings about them. That's fantastic news. I must just read out that Andy's written in the chat applications for the current grant cycle are closed, but for future judges should join the newsletter to stay connected to the latest news, and everyone is welcome to sign up. I also want to just invite anybody and everybody that's here. Thank you very much for being here. And if you'd like to come up and chat with us or have any questions or thoughts or any narrators or authors you'd like to mention this to, please do feel free to join us. Ronnie, do you want to continue then with the process? So, under the assumption that you find out, I guess, as an author that your book has been chosen, what happens next?
After they get chosen, we make the big announcements, and then everybody, authors get with Lyric to start breaking down choices in narration. They generally have, notes about, the type of voices they want connected to their stories, accents needed, dialects needed, all kinds of notes if they're actual worlds or fictional worlds and made up languages and whatnot. And so they make those requests or, talk all that out. And then Katie throws her magical dust in the wind to try to get the narrators that best represent those stories.
Sorry, I was
Yeah.
just trying to find Katie in the audience to say if she wanted to come up and join us, if she's available to. I know a lot of people tend to walk their dogs or eat their lunch while they're listening, but I will press the button anyway. Sorry, Ronnie, do
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. No, once the judging gets decided and everybody's left it all on the floor, that that's it gets pretty much decided, and then all the production fun happens and schedules get made.
Yes, the realities of the process. Katie, thank you very much for joining us up here on the sofa. Do you want to talk us through that process for those who don't know? I'm sure there might be, hopefully, at some later date, authors listening to the replay of this, curious about kind of how you go through that process of deciding once this book's been chosen for production, how you go about doing your job.
Yeah, well, it's so far it's kind of been different for every round because we've definitely done a lot of experimentation and trying to figure out what works best. I think in round one, I read all of the submissions because I wanted to know what like casting ideas I would have before we even had finalists chosen. But as we continue to grow, that becomes less and less possible. So the judges' notes this year, Ronnie worked on a really great form for the judges where they could also make recommendations for casting ideas or note things like mentions of accents. So that really has helped me as a producer to kind of get an idea before I dive into the book. Also, I have been finding just this year with the applications, there's always an area where the authors can note if they have like a dream cast of narrators that they really want to work with. And I think in round one and round two, we didn't see people filling that in as often. But round three, I noticed it a little bit more. And I think as we kind of continue to grow, people that are kind of coming into the program or hoping to apply might have an idea of what their expectations or hopes are for their audiobooks already. So that makes my job, a little bit easier. But essentially, once the finalists are chosen, and then the actual recipients are voted on, and those are chosen, I have like a one on one meeting with each author where we kind of go over the entire process again. And I also provide them with a lot of templates. So, for instance, something like our character notes templates, where they're asked a lot of questions about background and different details that we would want the narrators to know. And then we also go through the casting process together. So, usually after our talk or even during, I'll provide a list of possible narrators that they might want to work with and see who the right fit is. And then I'll follow up to see if they've made a decision. If they haven't, then we go into the audition process. So just like with any audiobook production, each audiobook production in Audio in Color itself is very different. So I think this year I think for three of the audiobooks, we did auditions. For one of those, we did wider auditions and just trying to find like the perfect voices that would really match up with the author expectations, but also the character background. So yeah, it's very one-on-one, especially in that beginning. They get a lot of information up front, and then I do a lot of the work behind the scenes to kind of make everything happen. And then I kind of come back to them with, okay, here's our production schedule. Here's when we're going to have files over to you. Here's what we're thinking like is as a possible release date. What do you think? And then they get more information about some of the details for actually publishing the audiobooks. So things like how to upload their files and where to upload them, and what are the dimensions of an audiobook cover, and what kind of metadata do they need when they're uploading to like Findaway versus ACX. So yeah, it kind of goes from there. I think that's most of the production stuff, though, I still kind of handle, and they just get updates. And they're treated just like any other lyric client in that sense.
Thank you. I'm curious then about any of you that are up here. Thank you again so much for joining us to talk this through. Can I get your ideas on kind of the reactions from authors that you've been able to kind of introduce into the industry now and produce audiobooks for them when perhaps they might not have done? Have you had anybody come back and say, this has been the best experience of my entire life? Because I can imagine for some people it has been. We here love audiobooks so very much. And I'm really curious about kind of the reactions you've had to this obviously very successful venture.
I mean, I think almost all of them feel that way. I mean, I think probably two or three of the most vocal proponents would be Amy Oliveira, who is now joining our board as member at large. Jen Trin, obviously. I mean, Katie and Andy and I were on the call, and just like her level of emotion, she poor thing was in tears, happy tears. But like, it's just that kind of dream like we all as authors have a dream when you finally push out that book, and more than a dream, it's a prayer. Like, oh, I hope everyone else loves it too. And sometimes they do, and sometimes it does well, and sometimes it does okay, and sometimes you're like, oh no, a dud. But I mean, I think that all of the authors, by and large, have just been so excited. One of the things that happens after they've gone through production and their book goes out is I do a live with them on Instagram. And one of my favorite questions to ask everyone is, how did you feel when you first heard your audiobook. And of course, by and large, the response is the same. They all feel a little bit like, oh my God. And especially when you get to the sexy parts, they're like, I couldn't listen. I couldn't listen. I had like, I forget. I think it was Drina who said she like hid under a blanket, and she was like, it was so good, but it was also like, oh my God, did I write it like that? And and for those who don't listen to audio, I think it's a special treat because to hear it come alive, it is like a movie. And I don't even think that they expect that. Like for those who listen to audio, they sort of know what to expect a little bit, and so they're happy and excited. But especially if they don't listen, and then it's the shock of like hearing. I think Lucy was just like, oh my God, when I heard when I heard Jacob Morgan, I think it was Jacob Morgan. Katie, correct me if I'm wrong. Do her book. She was like, she's like, she's like, I was like, oh no, oh my God. And it's just that like elation and like to hear it, like to hear it come to fruition is a very exciting thing for them. I mean, I think for all of us, like the number of times I've like, like Andy did Cheeky World, Cheeky King. And I mean, I know Andy. So it was, and I was still like, oh, it's Andy. It's Andy Arndt. Like I get a giggle in a throat when I hear my own. So I think that by and large, everyone's just very, very excited and just there's that giddy feeling of what your book can do for you and what it sounds like now.
And also, if I can jump in here real quick, the other positive is the knowledge, the know-how. So many of the authors, it's uncharted territory, right? And so audio and color really walks the authors through the process. So they come out knowing what to do the next time, what is important to them when they come in, pretty much a blank space of knowing how this area works.
It is an enormous undertaking, isn't it? When you don't know the industry. Sorry, Andy, you were going to jump in.
I was just going to mention one of our first round grantees, Asia Monique, she's gone on to produce her whole series in audio now. And so to me, that's a really huge statement of result of what we were hoping to see. It's just priming the pump, reducing barriers and increasing access and opportunities just to level this playing field because we still in 2024 have access issues. And there's an article in the Atlantic Monthly this month called Has the DEI Backlash Come for Publishing? And unfortunately, there's a hashtag Goodbye 2020 making its way around of like, there's all this spotlight on this issue. And then people settle down, people forget, white people. Let's just be clear, you know, move on to some other thing and forget. And then in this behind the scenes, publishing companies and other opportunity gatekeepers default to what might feel more comfortable to the majority of people who are in decision making positions in our publishing industry. So, I would love for this program to be not necessary, but as long as it is, I will be either actively working in it or someday when I retire, financially supporting it.
It's an incredible initiative. I'm just like to invite anybody from the audience to come up and say hi or ask some questions if you'd like to. I'm curious about how many you spoke of kind of rounds of application that you've had. Do you know when the next one might be?
Yeah, I mean, we are deep into the middle of round 3 right now.
Oh, so sorry,
And
so it's
then
literally just closed, has it? You're currently in process, as it were.
the judges are reading books right
Wonderful.
now. Yeah. So if anybody, if any authors are hearing this, you're looking for information on round 4. And again, sign up for the emails so that you get up to the minute announcements. We didn't leave the grant applications open for all that long because our feeling was like, let's do a big blast and make sure that everybody knows about it. But a sense of urgency, like get those applications in. Um, because that to me is a sign that that author is going to be ready to work with us, is getting back to us quickly, because we move quickly through the process. So Katie, when did we open applications?
Yeah, we did that this spring. So I think we opened April 1st and we closed, I want to, or maybe April 15th and we closed May 15th. And then the judges have a month and a half to read, as Ronnie said. And I think probably for next year. I mean, we haven't planned round four. It'll definitely be happening, but I would guess maybe we would be aiming for early 2025. Don't quote me on that though.
Yeah, it'll have to be after this year's Fall into Romance auction so that we have the funds. So when if you get an email saying, "Hey, we're accepting donations to the Fall into Romance auction," that's a way that you can support this initiative by making a donation in kind or of a signed book or narrator attending a book club type thing. That's a way that you can support this.
It sounds like you have so much going on and so many kind of different ways to promote and foster this whole thing. I commend you all. It sounds like a super. It wasn't something I had come across until I think I must have seen a post on your Instagram, Andy, about this and kind of started investigating and asked you to come along. So thank you so much for kind of sharing all this information with us. I know there will be lots of people here and hopefully, again, as I said, listening to the replay and thinking about applying or thinking about suggesting somebody else put themselves forward. So I am excited for everything that's kind of coming out. And as you say, it seems to have already been an incredibly well received and hugely successful for you. So huge congratulations there. Just as a last thought, does anybody have any thoughts about what you would see as success with regards to, are you looking for numbers? Are you just looking for, and you mentioned earlier one of the authors having continued to then produce all of her books in audio, which can only be, hugely wonderful for the industry. Do you have any markers that you'd like to reach or match?
I mean, I think from myself, I think so many of those markers have already been reached. So only to do them in a bigger way because we've already, I mean, our first round out, I mean, Andy, like, I don't know what to say, but like, that's just how we do it. But our first round out, we already had an author nominated for an Audie. So I would like to see more of that, more of our authors, and then also the narrators to be nominated for Audies based on the books that they narrated for us. I would like to see the funding get bigger and better and just more exposure to the point that we're managing a very large fund. So we're talking about just constantly being able to fund further and further and further out. As Andy said, as long as we can keep doing this, we will. Because I mean, as an author of color myself, and as someone who writes characters of color, this has been what I've been about. This has been my mission statement since the very beginning of my career. And, I always made it a point that, there are so many doors closed. And I've been extremely successful in my career thanks to the help of a lot of people who like saw potential or saw something in me. And as many people that I could, I would hold the door open for them. Even if it was just a crack, I will drag, I will pull, I will sneak as many people in behind me as I can. And we've been able to do that. Just like knowing that Asia has continued to produce audiobooks. Kat Jackson, her second book in the series, Sabbatical, I think was also nominated for an Audie. We didn't do that one, but because of her first book, Office Hours, which by the way, the judges loved that one. All we did was hear about Office Hours through that first judging round, and the book was delightful and really really fun. And so her book was nominated, and then to just see that all these authors need is an opportunity, which has been the whole point, to create access and opportunity. Because when doors are closed to you and barriers are up, of course people are like, oh, well, we don't see anyone doing this. And it's like, well, because you've closed doors in our faces. But then you open up those doors or just even crack them open and to see what people can do with, and we're doing something amazing, but we're not even doing something truly like, we're not doing something that's like knocking major socks off. We're not out here with like $1 million grant doing something like massive. We're doing something very, very grassroots. And it's like when we do something grassroots, see what can happen. So what could happen if we get even bigger donations? Like what could happen as this program grows? And for me, that's really exciting. We've already hit all the markers, and I'm like, oh, next time set bigger goals. Like I want everyone to get nominated for an Audie, from the narrators to the books to the authors. Like I want it all. And I think that with our program, we can definitely do it. It's been amazing so far.
Yeah, huge congratulations. Absolutely. I don't know if anybody that's up here still would like to have any last thoughts. We've actually got somebody coming up to ask us a question, hopefully. So Keith is joining us up here on the sofa. Thank you very much, Keith, for coming up to chat with us.
Hello. I just want to say hello, everyone. I'm waving from up in Interlaken, Michigan, which is where I'm based, and I want to thank all of you so much. This is an amazing discussion, and I'm feeling very inspired to hear of the incredible success of this initiative and everything. And thank you, Anna, so much for all that you've done to help foster this community as well. And I just wanted to say I am a I've honestly never come up to a sofa in Clubhouse before. I'm kind of getting used to it, as many of us are. But I wanted to say just hello, and I'm a narrator who I specialize in romance and made that decision like late this past year. I narrate as Benjamin Sands, who is a lot busier than little old Keith. And I just wanted to say that since really meeting people at the narrators retreat in New England this last fall and really investing myself in the romance space, I've been just like I'm just blown away by the passion of the communities within the romance space and just the incredible passion of authors and of listeners for their favorite narrators and for these healing stories. And anyway, I just continue to be inspired by all of that. And I suppose that's what I wanted to share. Just thank you all very much for what you're all that you're doing. And it just makes me want to do what I do all the better.
Thanks, Keith. I want to challenge you and everyone who's a narrator who's listening right now and to the re-record or to the replay to to be mindful of when we're asked to be on panels or asked to go to romance events, that
Mm,
before we say yes or before we step up on those stages, we take an opportunity to ask, who else is going to be there, and take note of events that are valuing diversity, like STEAMY Lit Con that's coming up in August. And
mm,
also make note of environments that don't seem to have opened the doors for equal representation, because it's really important.
mm. Thank you. That's wonderful. That's great information, and I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to take advantage then to say thank you very much. We've had lots of lovely comments in the chat about how excited everybody is at the prospect and at the opportunities that you provide, and how thrilled we all are that so many authors are coming to you, getting their books produced, and then continuing to produce their books in audio. It's just adds to the importance of human voices, the importance of diversity, and all of those things. We've just had a last minute question in the chat. Andy, do you have a direct link for your newsletter, the audio in color one? Would that be through the website?
Yeah, there should be a form to fill out on the website to sign up for the newsletter.
Sign up to be judges as well, you mentioned earlier, Andy. Nana, sorry, you were.
Yeah, there is the contact us. You can contact us through there. And then the about us, I'm trying to just double check. For the joining the newsletter, I don't see it, but in the contact us, you can definitely reach us there if you're looking to help out in any way to become a judge. We will get back to you, and then we'll make sure that the newsletter is on the site.
Yeah, we have a board meeting tomorrow, so I think we have a new agenda item.
Yeah, we will definitely make sure that that is there.
Anna, thank you so much for inviting us to spotlight this program today. It's a really great opportunity.
I'm reading through everybody's comments in the chat, and basically people are saying they had seen it in passing, they had witnessed and were aware of its existence, but kind of weren't aware of what it was or how it worked. So I'm thrilled that we were able to kind of share the importance of these kind of initiatives and how well you're doing. I'm absolutely thrilled for you. So no, thank you all very much and so many of you for coming along. Thank you very, very much indeed. It was very kind. Today we chatted with most of the board of Audio in Color. I think as a community, we value diversity and we need to share the importance of that with everybody else. Nana, your quote today that I have loved is, "To be welcomed is to be seen." And I feel like I'm going to get that printed on a t-shirt. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much to all those who joined us today. I hope this has been an explanation of how this all works and yet more excitement within the industry of the diversity and the inclusion that goes on here. So thank you very much to everyone. Let's go out and be our favorite selves.